What's up guys, welcome back. Hope you're doing well. In our last video, we set up our project directory and also got started with setting up our login screen, and we're going to be continuing with that in this video. So mainly what I want to accomplish is getting these text fields set up. Now we're not going to be building out the entire text field custom view just yet with like the custom image and the divider. We're just going to be getting two text fields on the screen, get the spacing right, and we're going to call it there. We are going to do that all the custom stuff in another video in this section. So let's go over, sort of the overview of how we want to set this up. So we're going to be placing it inside of this VStack that we have here, right? Because we just want the text field stuff to be below this, so we can easily just place it inside of the current VStack that we have. We are, however, going to want to place it inside of its own VStack. So we're going to put these two text fields inside of its own VStack. And the reason for that is because we want our own custom spacing and padding and insets on this VStack here, right? So we can think of this as one view, this is another view, but they're all sort of contained in this VStack. So you guys notice that we have one, padding value here, say it's 16, and then this is like 32 or 40, right? In order to accomplish that, you have to place these things within its own VStack, or this padding modifier would just be the same for everything. So if you want custom padding inside of your stacks, you have to have embedded stacks there. So that's why we're doing that. Now let's go ahead and create our text field. So go ahead and type out text field and then select the second option, title and text. So we're going to say text is email, and then we need to pass in a binding property for the text guy on this text field, right? So just go up to the top of your file and say state private var email equals a blank string, right? And then we can just go back down here and say $email. So this probably looks a little weird or confusing to some of you. Some of you might know exactly what's going on. I'm just going to give a brief explanation of what a state and binding property is. So essentially, guys, a state property is any property inside of this particular view that's going to be modified or is going to change, right? So essentially, this email property will get updated whenever the user is typing something into that email field. Every time they type something, it updates this email property. So that means that it's going to be a state variable because the state of this property is going to be changing. And when this thing changes, we could potentially be able to do other things inside of the view. So for example, say we had some form validation going on, say this sign in button was like grayed out, and we only want to gray it in once we get like a valid email and a valid password, right? We would look at those state properties and then we would say, hey, once they meet these certain requirements, then you change the state of this button. So you change the color of it, you enable the button, so on and so forth, right? So a binding property is very closely linked to a state property. It's just when the two things have to work together, right? A state and a binding property, that means you're working with some other custom view, right? So we pass a state property into this text field, and now this text field is going to have access to this text, but now the two things are bound together. So when this email property changes, those changes will be registered in the text field class that's happening, right? So we have certain capabilities or functionality as part of this text field class that we get from SwiftUI. And now when we pass that email, this guy into the text field, they're bound together now. So changes that happen on this email property will be reflected in this text field in the text field class, or the instance of the text field class here. That's just how the two things are linked. It's just really just a bridge of communication between the two things. So that's just a brief explanation, guys. If you are still confused on it, I think it will become a lot clearer throughout the progression of the course. If this is your first, go at SwiftUI, it's going to be really confusing at first. It is a kind of a confusing concept to get down, but once you do it enough, I promise you'll get it. Anytime with coding, guys, the more you do it, the more you practice something, the easier it's going to be to understand. So now that I've given you that explanation, let's go ahead and create a password field Something cool about Swift UI is they actually give us a secure field, which is used strictly for passwords. And we need to do the same thing here. So we're just going to create another state property for our password. And it's just going to be a blank string. And pass our password in there. Okay, let's go ahead and hit try again. And let's see if our text fields come up. And they are not just yet. And that's okay. Right, okay, so now we see them. And if you guys were to hit play on the preview, you would notice that you're actually able to type stuff into those text fields now. So that's a good start, right? Now we just need to get the spacing and the insets right on them before we move on. So what we're going to do is now modify this VStack, okay? So we're not going to modify the parent VStack, we're going to modify the VStack that is within the parent VStack. So really all we got to do is come here and say spacing, and we're going to say 20. Okay, so you notice how that spaces them out nicely, right? And now let's see. Go here and say dot padding, dot horizontal. And you guys notice that now we have some padding on the left. And if it were to stretch all the way to the right, you would see it there as well. So horizontal padding gives you both left and right padding. And we are going to want to give it a padding of 32. So just hit comma and 32. And guys, also we want to get some space between the top of this guy and this guy here, right? So you could do one of two things. You could give this bottom text here some padding, right? You could say like dot padding dot bottom 32, right? And that could do it. Or you could give this guy, what I like to do is we can wrap this in an array. So just go ahead and delete that dot horizontal guy and then say dot top and then dot horizontal, and we can give it 32, and now it has a padding on the top and the left and right of 32 pixels, right? So that's pretty cool. If you guys wanted custom padding for each one, you could just say padding top and whatever, or padding horizontal and whatever, right? This is just one way of doing it. So that's looking pretty good to me. Now guys, yeah, like I said, we're not going to be doing the custom view stuff. I think we're actually going to call that video here. Short and sweet. In the next one, we're going to build out the rest of these view components, and then we're going to build out our custom text fields. So thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you in the next one. Peace out.